Hey everyone, Al Fragnoli, Zach Sooty, legal leaders tonight. We're joined by Trevor Maloney. Trevor is a business strategy manager for ILEC, Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching. Trevor is also a leadership coach and motivational speaker for ILEC as well. Trevor, thank you so much for chatting with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's always fun. You guys are awesome. I'm looking forward to having a good chat.
Absolutely. So we got a couple questions lined up for you this evening. We'll get right into the first one. So Trevor, you have some experience as a college athlete playing baseball collegiately. Talk to us a little bit about what baseball has taught you throughout the years and how competing at the college level helped prepare you for your professional working career after your time in college.
Yeah, man, that's like the most loaded question of all time because I think baseball was life until I got out of baseball, right? So early on, I think baseball was really not to get too deep and like personal, but I think baseball early on in my life was the role model figure that I was missing, right? So growing up, raised by a single mother who did everything that she could to, just allow me to play baseball and to do what I wanted to do, oftentimes sacrificing what she could have been, right? And so early on, baseball was like that father figure, that discipline figure, that role model figure that I was really missing in my life, and thank God for that. And I had a great time playing baseball for many years, and throughout the sport, I learned basically everything I know about leadership without the structure. Right, I learned about discipline, I learned about competition, I learned about mindset, I learned about teamwork. I learned about winning. I learned about losing. I mean, you fill in the blank. I learned literally everything about the art and the kind of natural form of leadership that I really love. Right? Is that I guess that raw human form of leadership. If anything, that's the best thing I've learned throughout my life is those kind of key tenets that I got from playing baseball. Um, I think I think anybody who has ever played sports or has been around sports and athletics, really of any sport, any capacity, understands that there's an element of um, competition and understanding how to handle competition in a healthy way. I think I was on a Rich's podcast. I think you know Ali, Rich. We were talking about something that I call the killer of collaboration, right? And I think in business and in life, when we're weak and in the form of confidence and competence, we tend to want to drift towards collaboration, right? And I think what baseball taught me is that sometimes we got to be a warrior for winning, right? And we gotta decide that we're gonna beat someone out. Like we're actually gonna win, and that means that someone else is gonna lose. But that doesn't mean that we both can't win. And baseball taught me how to look somebody in the eye and say, "Hey, I'm gonna beat you," and or you're gonna beat me, and that's okay because we're gonna, both parties are gonna give it our all, both teams, whatever it looks like, right? Um, and and we're going to learn from that. If I win, I'm going to learn the success habits it took to win. If I lose, I'm going to learn how to refine, adapt, and grow from a loss. And I think in today's environment, in the business environment, and our relationships, we've drifted to this massive, I would say maybe self acceptance, over kind of that we're afraid to compete. We're afraid everyone has to win. And I think that's the biggest piece that we're missing in sports, in life, and in business. I truly believe in the depths of my heart that competition ultimately is what drives performance. And to go back to kind of my collaboration point about baseball, which is one of the biggest things that I've learned is once you become successful, once you know how to win, then you know how to win with somebody else, right? Then you can collaborate. Why? Because you're bringing your best self into the collaboration. And so, I don't know if I answered all of your points in the question. You can point me back to one of them that I might have missed, but I think those are the key things that really, again, that role model figure, baseball was that for me. It kept me focused. It kept me driven. It kept me, Tony Robbins says it best: progress equals happiness, right? And I think in baseball, and even the athletic work that I do today in CrossFit, there's always something to learn. There's always something to grow. There's losses every single day. There's wins every single day. And it's a constant evolution of growth that you throw yourself into, and unapologetically, right? And so, let me know if I missed anything on that question.
No, Trevor, I think you nailed it. And there's so many wonderful things that you just mentioned. And some of the best leaders that I've ever worked with included a CEO who was passionate about winning in the hospitality industry, wanted to win, but that didn't make him, he didn't mean he wasn't empathetic or sympathetic. He cared about his people as well.
Yeah.
You can go out and want to just destroy somebody, destroy your competition, and still care about your people. And I thought that was something that we do miss. And Al and I have had conversations about, we talk about the Mamba mentality, and one
Mhm.
individual we talk about in sports that doesn't have that, in my opinion, is LeBron James. There's just like that where's that dagger? Where's that fierce competitiveness?
Mhm.
So I love that you mentioned that. But there's to lead into our next question, sports and especially baseball, it's a game of failures. I
Mhm.
mean, if you're 3 out of 10 in your career, you're in
Hall
the
of
Hall of
Fame.
Fame.
Mhm.
So, you know, with baseball being a very mental sport, how did the mental aspect of the game help prepare you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. And you're right. Baseball is absolutely a sport built off of failure. Unless you're a pitcher, you should probably, be doing a little better than, that. But generally speaking, yeah, 3 out of 10, you're a Hall of Famer. But you're also a failure, right? By statistics and by the data. So I think what really has, again, going back to that competition and learning to lose and learning to learn and grow from those losses, it taught me that you don't have to win all the time. And in fact, I think it's just as important to get a no or a loss or a rejection or whatever that looks like in business, because if you're smart and if you're disciplined enough, you're gonna go back to the drawing board. You're gonna learn from that. You're gonna refine some things, and then you're gonna go right back at it. And when you think about, an at bat, right? What typically on average you get 3 to 4 at bats, right? Um, per 9 innings. Well, you go 0 for 1 with a strikeout. What happens, right? That's a loss, and in fact, it's not something you want. But you go back into the dugout, you take a look at some film, you kind of look at your swing, you look at some things that happen, and you go back on the field next inning or whenever you get back, and hopefully you refine enough to be successful, right? And I think that that's so transferable in the business world today, because almost everything important in life is built off of some form of getting back up after a loss and stepping back onto the field, whatever that field looks like. And I love your point, and I agree with you about LeBron James. I used to be the biggest fan ever, but I think in recent times, I just don't see that tenacity and that fire to truly win. And hopefully he can learn from that, and because he's obviously one of the most talented basketball players to ever walk the face of the earth, if not one of the most talented athletes period to walk the face of the earth. But there's something that tells about our mindset. There's something that happens with winners in their mind that is different from those who are just talented. And when you can combine talent with, a warrior mentality of ownership, accountability, and responsibility, you're going to be the one in your business world. You're going to be the one in your own personal business. You're going to be the one on the field to say, I want the ball. I want to be up to the plate in the bottom of the ninth. I want to take the last shot. I want to close that big deal, right? Whatever it is, you're going to be that person that steps into that. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away is just the mindset of a warrior, of a winner, somebody who isn't afraid to take the losses and learn from them. So
I love that, Trevor. Thank you for sharing some of your points on mental leadership through baseball and what you learned. There's so many interesting things to take away from baseball, and as Zach alluded to, is if you go 3 for 10 again, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? So you're failing a lot more than you're winning and being successful, and it's the people that constantly keep pushing themselves to learn from those failures that end up being successful. So couldn't agree with you more on some of those points you shared. Let's shift a little bit from baseball. As much as I love talking about baseball all day long, let's shift it a little bit to leadership and what you do over at ILEC. So, as a leadership coach, just talk to us a little bit about what brought you over to Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching ILEC and what you love most about working for ILEC.
yeah, good question. So I think, although you said we don't want to talk about baseball, I think it was baseball that actually ignited the fire of a passion for leadership, human performance, and mindset in my heart and soul. When I so going back to kind of the last days of my baseball career, I was finishing up playing at Tennessee Tech University. I was one of the top draft prospects there, and I had a decision to make. I ended up not getting drafted. I actually had not the greatest junior or senior year. It was to me, it was like devastating. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was again like ready to get drafted. That was my vision, but something kind of happened, and it was quite honestly, I think it was mental. There was something else that I was deeply thinking about, and I think it was like, what's next for me? Like, is this really what I want? And I didn't really ever say that, but it was like baseball started to become, you know, a past thing, at least subconsciously, maybe, right? It wasn't that same fire that I have for baseball. And I'm like, why is that? Like, why am I struggling to regain that fire? And long story short, I had the opportunity to sign as a free agent. And my wife, now girlfriend at the time, um, I was like, you know what? Like, I think I need to just focus on, our relationship, and, where else I can bring my talents, right? Like, what else I can do in this world. It's not just baseball. And I had that kind of feeling of, it's not only baseball. I need to take what I've learned from baseball, what I've extracted from baseball, and bring it into the workplace and bring it into the work that I do. Um, and then you asked, how did you start working, for ILEC? It started with working for John Matone, who's the #1 ranked executive coach and former coach to Steve Jobs. He's worked with, countless executives and big time people all over the world. And I actually sent him an email. I was working at a company called Centerfield Media as a paid search marketing manager. Then I was a sales manager for about 15 different sales agents, and I was doing a lot of fun work. I was very young. I was the youngest manager there, so I kind of excelled in the rankings and proved myself fast. And I sent John an email like, "Hey, man, I love what you do. Um, you're an inspiration to me. You're a role model of mine, and you don't even know me. I would love to work for you." Like, I literally was like, "This is what I want to do." I had a connection, thankfully, through his son, who we actually played baseball together in college. And I sent John an email. Long story short, I ended up working for him. And the rest is kind of history. And I've gone from being kind of head of business development guy for John, kind of doing the consultative work with some senior executives, CEOs, government leaders, and stuff like that. I've had the chance to talk to amazing seasoned professionals of all walks of life across virtually every country in the world. And when we started, ILEC, now a lot of the work that I do is around kind of business strategy and taking some of the things that I've learned in the past with John and deploying those, in the ILEC business. As a leadership coach, again, I've just always been passionate about leadership and helping people overcome mental fatigue, step into their full potential, and ultimately allow them to claim their purpose at the highest level that they possibly can. And so when I look at all of those things, I honestly feel like I'm sitting in the perfect place, exactly where I'm supposed to, each and every day. The days come with struggles, they come with successes, just like anything else in life. But I feel like I am on purpose, right? Which is a really good feeling. So
All right, Trevor. Well, everybody has a unique story, but I love your story and where it led to you, and where it led to. And I love that you're comfortable where you're at, and you're in the right place. I think a lot of people search for that for many many years.
mm,
So kudos to you, and love what you're doing. Um, but you mentioned working with leaders all across the globe in
mhm.
many different industries. What are some of the top qualities of the best leaders you've had the opportunity to meet and work with? What are some qualities that our listeners should probably try to put in their toolbox? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always say, I call it the three C's, which is character, competence, and commitment. And so really what that means to me is character is, your thinking patterns, your emotional makeup, right? Who you are at the deepest level, right? Your integrity, honesty, loyalty. Those qualities that make up our character, John calls it the inner core. Those qualities I think are non-negotiable for strong leadership. It's not a non-negotiable for strong performance. You can be a high performer with bad character, and that doesn't make you a good leader. We've all met those people. The CEOs that are very talented, no shortage of intellect at all. They're smart, they're technical, they know how to get stuff done, but they don't know how to inspire others. They don't know how to tap into who they're really called to be, and that's where that character piece comes into play. So integrity, honesty, loyalty, those qualities. I think that if you can develop those, and by the way, you can never fully develop those. That's a lifelong journey, but it's becoming self aware of the deficiencies in those areas, as well as the strengths so that you can continue to evolve as a human being, leader, and professional, right? Competence, right? I think I'm a big fan of lead by example, right? And so I was doing a keynote in 2019 to a group of students, and one of the things I said is that, listen, your character is not going to guarantee the success that you want to have in this life, right? But a lack of character will keep you away from everything you want to achieve, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like in a business, right? Social media, you got to have it. It's not going to drive all of your business, but you need to have it because it'll keep you out of the market if you don't have your social media. That's like your character, right? It's like you got to develop it, but you can't expect it to just, you know, fix everything in your life. What does, when you bolt on the next phase, which would be competence, if you have a strong character and you're also really good at something, guess what? You can lead by example. And so I'm a huge believer in leading by example. I think that you have to be good at what you do in order to really lead at the highest level. It doesn't mean you can't be a leader if you haven't found that, high value skill set that you have, because that's again a part of a development process. But if you do, if you know what you're really good at and you continue to leverage those strengths and you also develop a strong character, you're an unstoppable leader, right? Then the third piece is commitment. Commitment has to do everything with the mind, right? Commitment is, hey, what happens when, what hits the fan? What happens when all of my plans get jumbled in an instant, right? Are you going to stay the course? Are you going to refine, adjust, and keep moving forward? Or do you have a commitment problem and do you start to shy away from your purpose, your passion, and what you're really called to do? And I think the greatest of leaders implement a commitment strategy in their mind, and they have a mindset of big commitment, that they step into opportunities that maybe they're not even ready for, but they know what has to happen in order for them to get to where they want to go. They have to step into that level of commitment. And I think, tying that to the days we're living in now, people have a big problem with commitment, right? Marriages, 50% of marriages fail, right? Um, New Year's resolutions. We've all heard the cliche story, right? How many people say they're going to get in the gym and then they don't right after a month into the new year? These things happen. People have a big problem with commitment. And I think that's a critical element. So if you combine all those three, to me, that's what makes a outstanding leader. That's not only a good person that inspires others, that's a visionary, but also has the skill set to show you how it's done, walk the walk, if you will, and has the commitment and discipline to keep going when things aren't going that well. Um, so hope that makes some sense to you guys.
Absolutely, Trevor. That was all awesome information that you shared right there. Character, competence, and commitment. The 3 C's. I love it. Right. So that is fantastic stuff that you shared right there. You mentioned people struggle with commitment. I find that so interesting because to me, commitment is a big thing and obviously critically important in being a successful and strong leader. But there are a lot of people that do struggle with honoring their commitments and sticking to it. So interesting point there, but I couldn't agree with you more. We're going to our last question here, we're going to kind of piggyback off of that last question a little bit, Trevor. We just want you to maybe think a little bit about 1 or 2 things that you would advise to a younger leader who is trying to take that next step in their career and advance themselves into a leadership role. What are 1 or 2 things that you think are critically important for a young leader to learn and kind of do to get into that next level leadership?
Yeah, good question. I think first and foremost, never assume that you're not ready. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of stigma out there, right, for young people. Hey, they're not ready to step into this role. Even for myself, when I kind of started working with people, hey, like you're too young to work with an executive. How are you going to speak on stage? You're in your 20s, right? And I remember getting that type of judgment from others. And what did I do? I stood on stage and I inspired the hell out of people, right? And so I think that for any young leader who has a vision for a leadership role, who has a vision to do something in their life that may be different from the people around them, hold on to that, because that's what really separates you from your competition, right? When I realized that I had the talent to speak, when I realized that I could really understand people at a deep level, and I executed that on a phone call or on a stage, nobody cared that I was at the time, whatever, 24, 25, standing on a stage. Nobody cared that I was on a call with an executive that John was going to work with. They had no idea that I was half their age, right? So number one, step into the opportunities, throw yourself into the fire. You're going to figure it out, right? If you have that passion, then it's a calling. You need to step into it and deal with kind of the turbulence that comes with that new environment, whatever that is, and just understand that if you trust the process and if you continue to move forward, you're gonna figure it out, right? Number 2, let's see, what is number 2? That first one is like the biggest thing for me. But number 2, I would say focus on on actual personal development. And what do I mean by that? Well, start reading, get a hold of some bright minds, get a coach, reach out to somebody that can mentor you, right? These things, when you say them, they sound simple, like, of course, but really, like I'm saying, read, right? Like actually read powerful information. Reach out to people who have expertise that you would like to obtain. Learn from them. Reach out to somebody that can help you grow as a person and refine your character, skill set, and commitment to your goals, right? Don't be afraid of that process, because it's not a weak decision. Most people think those type of decisions are weak, right? Personal development, soft skills, whatever we want to call them. Those are the decisions that take the most courage, is to value yourself enough that you're going to invest in you, right? And those are the 2 things, right? Personal development, invest in yourself. And the second is throw yourself in the fire, man. Like you're ready for this, to whatever capacity that looks like.
Trevor, that's fantastic stuff that you just shared with us. That wraps it up for tonight. We thank you for coming on with us and joining us. I loved hearing more about your background through baseball, and how you advanced your career professionally as well through the things that you learned through baseball. That last question that you answered to struck home right there with focus on personal development, find a mentor, read. Warren Buffett, I think, once said that he spends 80% of his days reading. That's a ton. But it's so critically important for us to read because we're never going to learn if we don't, right? Yeah. And think about the number of people that go through life and they don't have a mentor. And it's a shame because we all need somebody that we can rely and trust on and go to when we're looking for advice and guidance. So can't thank you enough, Trevor. Know you're a busy guy. You've got 15 different job titles, so you got your hands full. But we thank you for coming on with us and sharing some of your story and your background with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's certainly been a pleasure for sure. Thank you guys so much.